What's up guys, this is iTweaks here, and today we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the iPad mini versus the iPad Air. Now we'll be doing benchmarks as well as other various performance tests to hopefully help you decide which iPad is right for you. So the first thing that I want to do is take a very quick look around the devices. So up here at the top we have a sleep-wake button, as well as in the middle we have a mic, and if we move the mini down we have a secondary mic right there, as well as a 3.5mm headphone jack. On the back we have a 5 megapixel camera on both devices that are going to shoot in 1080p HD. And on the right side of the device we have two volume rocker control buttons as well as that mute switch. Here on the bottom we have two speakers, stereo speakers with lightning cable ports. We have a regular home button, no touch ID here, and at the top we have a 1.2 megapixel front facing camera for FaceTime calls. We also have a depth of 7.5 millimeters for each device. Now if we take a look at the screens, they both have an LED backlit multi-touch display with IPS technology. Now the main difference is the Air has a 9.7 inch screen while the Mini has a 7.9 inch screen. Both have a resolution of 2048 by 1536, but the iPad Mini comes in at 326 pixels per inch while the Air is only at 264 pixels per inch. So let's go ahead and stack these on top of one another, that way you can get a better look at the size difference of both of these. You'll also notice that the bezel is a little bit thinner on the iPad Mini. Now if we put them side by side like this, you can see it's almost half the size of the bezel on the Air. But now getting out of the physical features of the iPads, let's go ahead and start doing some tests. Now the first test that I want to do is a boot up test. So let's go ahead and do that. So ready, 1, 2, 3. And let's see which one of these boots up quicker. So both of these iPads actually have an A7 chip with 64-bit architecture. They also both have an M7 coprocessor and 1 gig of RAM. So you're probably not going to see much of a difference in the boot up time since they have the exact same internals here. So you can see they pretty much started up at the exact same time. If there was any difference, it was probably just me not pressing the power button at the exact same time. So in this case, it's a draw. So the next thing that I want to do is go ahead and run some benchmarks. So we're going to be using Geekbench 3 to benchmark the processor. Now the first thing we want to do is make sure we're not running any applications in the background, and we're not, so that's good. So let's go ahead and swipe over here and open up Geekbench 3. And keep in mind that we have an A7 chip on both of these devices, but you can see here on the iPad Mini we're clocking in at 1.29 gigahertz, and on the iPad Air we're actually clocking in at 1.39 gigahertz. Now both of these devices do have 1 gig of RAM, so there should be the exact same internals, but they are clocking at different speeds. So let's go ahead and run this and let's see how well both of these do. So let's go ahead and skip ahead. And you can see that the iPad Air finished first with 1480 as a single core benchmark and a 2688 as a multi-core score. And on the iPad Mini we have a 1391 for single core and a 2523 for a multi-core score. And it's probably due to the processor clocking in at 1.39 rather than the iPad Mini at 1.29. So after running those benchmark tests, there's probably not going to be much of a difference here, but we're going to open up some stock applications as well as do a little browsing test. So there's nothing running in the background. Let's go ahead and open up the settings here, and they basically open up the exact same time. Let's try the reminders app. No difference there either. And the clock, exact same time as well. And last, let's try the camera. And it really doesn't get any closer than that. So let's go ahead and open up Safari here. And let's go to iPhone hacks. And it looks like the iPad Air loaded a little bit quicker than the iPad Mini, but let's open up an article here. And these load up pretty much at the exact same time. So if we pinch and zoom, we're not getting any type of checkerboard or anything like that. It's buttery smooth. Let's try a different website. Let's go to Apple. And these load up pretty much instantaneously. So let's try ESPN. And again, they load up pretty much at the exact same time. So this is definitely one big draw. So now that we've loaded up all the easy stuff, let's do something a little bit more resource demanding. So let's make sure we don't have anything running in the background. And what we're going to be loading up is Infinity Blade 3. So this is actually optimized for 64-bit architecture, but it's a very resource demanding game. So let's go ahead and see how fast these load up. So ready, 1, 2, 3. And it looks like the iPad Air is a little bit ahead, but that definitely could be just I tapped just a hair sooner than I did on the iPad Mini. But let's see which one of these loads up. And I mean, it's almost identical. It was a little bit quicker on the iPad Air, and this is actually a pretty long cutscene at the beginning of Infinity Blade 3. I mean, I did this cutscene on my iPhone 5 and it actually took quite some time to get it loaded up and going. So this was definitely much faster. So now we're going to be testing the battery on both of these devices. I actually charged these overnight and they're both at 100%. As you can see here, the iPad mini right there at 100% and the iPad Air at 100%. So what we're going to be doing in this test is just putting the brightness level up to 100%, so maximum brightness, as you can see right there. And then we're going to watch an episode of Breaking Bad on Netflix. Now, this is going to be a 57-minute episode, and we're just going to start it right now, and we're going to come back at the end and see how much battery power has drained just from watching one episode. Now, let me know in the comments below if you guys have ever watched Breaking Bad. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. One of my favorite TV series. Now, we skipped to the end here, and like I said, this was a 57-minute episode, and we kept the brightness up at 100% the entire time. So let's go ahead and check the iPad mini and the iPad Air to see how much battery percentage we have drained during that amount of time. So first we'll look at the iPad mini, and we have 87%, and the iPad Air is sitting at 88%. So not a big difference when you're talking about battery power. Now, Apple actually says that you have up to 10 hours of battery life watching videos on your iPad. Of course, it does say up to, so that doesn't mean you necessarily get 10 hours. But using this calculation of taking a 57-minute episode of Breaking Bad and it taking 13% of my battery, I actually will only get 7.3 hours of video watching on my iPad. Now, you could just turn down the brightness a little bit and you're going to get pretty close to that 10-hour mark. So I would say Apple's being pretty honest about the battery power of these devices. So next up, I want to go ahead and test these speakers and see if there's any difference between the speakers on both of these devices. So what we're going to be doing is just watching a YouTube video of mine that I recently did. So let's test out the iPad mini first.
On the iPhone 5S, all made of aluminum, and a Nexus 5 1-bar volume rocker made of ceramic. Now, if we take a look at the bottom, we have a headphone jack, a mic, a lightning cable port, and...
Alright, and next let's try the iPad Air.
On the iPhone 5S, all made of aluminum, and a Nexus 5 1-bar volume rocker made of ceramic. Now, if we take a look at the bottom, we have a headphone jack, a mic, a...
So actually, I think the iPad Air had a little bit more amplified volume than the iPad mini, and that's probably due to a little bit bigger speakers in the iPad Air than the iPad mini. Now, if you do want to watch that video in its entirety, then I'll put a link in the description below, as well as the annotation right here for you guys to click on. That is the iPhone 5S versus the Nexus 5 video. So a lot of people that have purchased the iPad mini with Retina Display have actually been complaining about the screen issue, where they think that the colors are actually being washed out. And so what I decided to do is go ahead and take a look at some of the wallpapers on these devices and put them side by side to see if I could tell any difference between the two. So the first one we're going to be looking at is this mountain range here, and you can actually tell a difference down at the bottom. There is a whole lot darker red on the iPad Air than you can see on the iPad mini. And what I want to do so you guys can see this, because you probably can't see it very well, let me go ahead and bring it up a little bit closer here and let me focus in. Alright, so you can see right behind the wallpaper preview, you can see how dark it is. And now we look at the iPad Air and you can see that it's just much duller than it is on the iPad Air. So there's definitely a difference in the color of the screen there. And both of these devices are on 100% brightness, just so you guys know. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at another one. Let's check this one out. So it's kind of hard to tell, but you can actually see a little more of a pink hue on the iPad Air right there. But on the iPad mini, you can't really see that, and I think that's due to that yellow tint that it has, or that yellow hue that the iPad mini has that you kind of saw on the previous picture, and it kind of cancels that out. So let's go ahead and take a look at one more, and you can see on this it's a whole lot more duller on the iPad mini and much more vibrant on the iPad Air. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack these on top of one another so you can definitely tell a difference, especially in the purple, the dark purple right in the middle there. It's a whole lot more vibrant on the pretty much all those colors. The fuchsia color, the purple color, and the blue color are all much more vibrant than they are on the iPad mini, as you can see right there. So for me, I prefer to type on the iPad mini if I have a choice, just because it's really simple to reach across the keyboard and reach every letter with ease. Now I'm not saying typing on the iPad Air is a hassle, but it definitely isn't quite as comfortable, as I sometimes find myself leaning the iPads toward my thumb in order to get those hard to reach keys. Also, for traveling or just carrying around your device, it's much easier to tote around the iPad mini because it fits in the palm of your hand. Now if you have some pretty big hands, then you can palm the iPad Air the same, but for me, it's just not a comfortable way to hold it. Now if you don't have a bag for your iPad, you can slip the iPad mini into your pocket just like that. It's not the most fashionable thing to walk around with a block in your pants, but it is convenient when you don't have a bag, and no matter how hard you try, you can't get that iPad Air into your pocket. So while the iPad Air has a nice big screen that's great for watching videos, the iPad mini makes up for that in size and portability, not to mention it's $100 cheaper. It's also more pixel dense and the size is built for comfort. So my choice is the iPad mini. What's yours? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, because it really helps me out. If you want to see more of my videos, then go ahead and subscribe. Also, don't forget to like my Facebook page and follow me on Twitter for updates. I'm also getting the PS4 today, so if you want to see some gameplay and unboxing, go check out my gaming channel. It's a lot of fun over there. Alright guys, until next time, peace.